Hello and welcome to the second edition of kind of a surprise edition of Peeling Onions. Never didn't actually expect to be making this one, but we'll get into a little bit of backstory in a minute. Anyway, in studio today we have Colin Perry. He is a student here at Union City Junior Senior High School. Um, and today's subject, as you'll find out, is who is truly more victimized in America's society today? Is it truly the minorities, or is it what I mean, based off of antonyms? What is the majority? Is the white guy really more victimized than a black guy per se, or gay, or any minority group? So Colin, welcome here. This is your first time on. Um, just really quick, what are your overall thoughts on the subject?
All right, so thank you for having me on this show. It's greatly appreciated. But my overall view of today's society is that it goes both ways. Both the minorities and the majorities are both victimized. You see, there are still leftover remain prejudices. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I don't care. Against minorities, and especially from the older generations of white people. They still believe that, some of them still believe that black people or Hispanic people are lower than them. And I do not deny that there is still racism here in America and sexism and overall discrimination. But the problem is that the liberal left has become so consumed about all this, they just become overly, I don't know what the word is that they've acted.
What they end up doing is they end up almost victimizing other, you know, white systemic, white cisgender males. And the problem is that when you shame these men into finding fat women not pretty, or you shame somebody for thinking that there's only two genders, shame people for these their opinions, then it creates them as an actual victim. And not only you're almost violating their First Amendment rights, not quite, because you're not, by government forcing them, but there's a lot of people who want that to be forced. They want, hate speech crimes and all this, etc., etc. And I'll get into a personal story of my own, but have you ever faced any sort of not just essentially rude behavior for your opinions, not just like your rhetoric?
I mean, pretty much overall in my life, I have not really experienced any discrimination or people shaming me for my political views. Is that sometimes people might disagree with me, we might argue a little bit, but other than that, we do not really have anything that we absolutely hate each other about. Is that we still respect each other, even though we have our political differences. But the problem is with today's society, with the liberal left, is that they become so consumed in victimizing themselves, is that they shame the majority and pretty much also try to discriminate against them too.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen my recent Instagram post, I posted a picture of a kitten. My cat just had four kittens. They're all long haired, not really necessary information. They're all adorable. And I had one on my lap and it was sleeping. I posted a picture uh, of one sleeping, and it was, and I captioned it, "Sleep tight, don't let the Chinese bite." And 100% is a joke. Everyone, the people that talked to me about it laughed. But I had a specific instance where somebody, I'm going to leave them unnamed because it's just out of respect, I'm going to leave them unnamed. But this person started texting me, DMing me on over Instagram, and he was talking about how that was racist, and I was victimizing Chinese people by calling them out like that. And I'll get to it in a minute. Right here, I'll have the post right here. Okay, just for an exact quote, it said, "Sleep tight, little kitty. Don't let the Chinese bite." He then sent me a text saying that, you see how, notice how that's racist? Do you notice that's racist? And I said, again, as a joke. I thought we were still both being sarcastic, just having a little bit of fun. And so I came back with, another little bit of a joke, and I was just like, well, it's their fault for eating them. And then, obviously I spelled it wrong, so I then, corrected my grammar. And he says, and I quote, and I quote, wow, each day more and more people like you ruin this place. Equity and equality. Ever heard of it? The actual is wrong with the world. People like you will never get the respect of others, and damn well will never get the respect from me. I've sent 4 people to the hospital for being racist. You are lucky that we live nowhere near each other, because then I'd make it 5. So at this point, I had to explain to him that you if you can't get into a political discussion without getting violent, you're in the wrong. So then I said, and I quote, I've heard it all before, bud, and I would never want to fight you. We used to be friends. We simply disagree politically, and for some reason that meant we couldn't be friends. I hate that. And by the way, if you put somebody in the hospital because you consider them racist, you are in the wrong. If they are racist, let them be in stay in the right. But anytime you want to debate, I am down and I am completely willing. So he comes out instantly ready to be violent in a political discussion and accuses me of being racist and all of these other, terrible things. I don't want anybody to be accused of racism. And so this kind of annoyed me. So I went on Instagram and I posted this conversation. And I said, sorry, but for making a joke, I am not racist. I quote, sorry, but I'm not racist for making a joke. He then texts me that that doesn't change the fact that this was racist. And you know it is, Gabe. You know it's common sense. Delete that post before I have to report you. It's wrong, and you know it is, Gabe. It's not fair. How much do you believe in a supreme race such as yourselves? Don't you think that we could all be a supreme race if we all just got along? Ever think of the possibilities? Why make the place more negative? Now, instantly, my thought right after this is now you're implying that I believe a supreme race just simply because I made a joke about Chinese people. I don't see how 2 and 2 get put together. Colin, I don't want to shut you out too much longer, but do you have any comments so far?
And my belief is that with today's PC culture, aka politically correct culture, is that we cannot make a simple joke without being accused of racist or anything else. The fact of the matter is that all cultures make fun of other cultures. It's just part of life. And if you get offended over the littlest things, then quite frankly, you have snowflake feelings, and that is your own problem. And I do want to end with this: is that with today's culture, a simple life can be ruined over a joke. There was one example where a CEO of a nonprofit company, I cannot remember what the name is that she texted saying, I'm going to Africa, hopefully I don't get AIDS. And she meant that as a joke. She got Twitter bashed, and with this mob rule style on Twitter, she had to resign from her job. And that's the problem with PC culture, is that you cannot do you can barely do anything without being accused of racist or sexist or homophobic or anything. If it's a joke, it's a joke. If it offended someone's feelings, well, sorry, but get over get over it.
And I'm glad you brought up, get over it. It's a joke. I know I touched on it a little bit, but I'm glad you discussed it. Um, and that's a huge problem because if you notice, like in America, obviously we have the freedom of speech. We have our First Amendment rights. And what you see in a lot of these countries that people hate living in, these terrible, terrible countries, is that they aren't guaranteed these First Amendment rights that we have: freedom of speech, religion, etc., etc. And so what a lot of this causes is these real victims, because obviously nothing actually happened. But what if we did live close to each other? What if he was serious? He later apologized for it, and I appreciated that. But what if he was serious? What if he followed through? You know, there would have been a huge problem there. And that's not only because now the police would end up getting involved, but now somebody might actually think I'm racist, and I'm not. I mean, clearly, I'm not. If you think I'm racist, I doubt you have proof of that. And he later on, we talked a little bit more, and I had to explain to him that me making a joke um, isn't racism. And if you look in these third world countries where, I mean, honestly, I consider North Korea a third world country. These people hate their lives. But if you look at those places, one of the first things that seems to go, and it's constant and it's consistent, is humor. They're not allowed to make jokes because if those jokes are taken seriously, there are problems with the government, and yeah.
They would be executed.
I mean, Kim Jong Un executed his own uncle. I don't think he's gonna be afraid to do it to anyone else. And and that creates a problem because as soon as we start apologizing for comedy, and I'm not even gonna say I'm a great comic. I'm probably not. I can make a good joke every now and then, but I'm never ever gonna make it big doing it. But as soon as I have to apologize for making a joke, you are taking away my First Amendment rights and saying I can't say that because someone might get offended. It's not my job to protect your feelings.
And I want to touch up a little bit on this is that in America, we have the natural born right of freedom of speech. And with freedom of speech, it includes all speech. Now, if you say there's a fire when there isn't, that's considered putting public safety at risk. But other than that, you have freedom of speech, not freedom from speech. And hate speech, unfortunately, even if it's actually hate speech and not just offensive speech, they still have the right to say that. The Westboro Baptist Church hold up signs saying ban, faggots. And the Supreme Court, yeah, let them be. The thing is that the Supreme Court let them do it. The KKK were handing out posters. They weren't terrorizing black people, but they're handing out flyers. It's not really posters, but flyers. Sorry for my mistake there. Is that the Supreme Court also ruled in favor that they have the right to do that as long as they're not crucifying black people. I don't know if they actually did or not, but they got pretty crazy.
There's still a lot of outrage about that, like that one Supreme Court case, and that's like, well, you're saying like if you go to like Antifa, which is obviously a violent organization and not really organization, a grouping of people supposedly, but I'm the mob, and yeah, but they essentially, I think they were actually weren't they designated as a terrorist organization not too long ago?
They were.
They were okay, yeah. So when you're acting like that, when you're saying that you believe what I believe, or I'm gonna beat you up, or I'm gonna kill you, or I'm gonna hurt you in some way or shape or fashion, that's not America. That's not protected. We don't protect your right to beat somebody up because you don't like what they say.
Korea.
Yeah, we that's it's great that we can do that, and it's great. And then this goes back to the founding fathers. They disagreed on a lot of stuff, but they had a convention. They talked about it. They worked it out, and they
3 months.
for 3 months. And guess what? No one got hurt. I guarantee George Washington did not have a duel with Thomas Jefferson, but I guarantee there were spots where they disagreed. Um, and what a lot of this, and just to quickly wrap it up because it's this we're gonna be droning on and on if not, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste your time. But if well, the one question I have is who is truly victimized? The black guy who can receive all this federal funding from affirmative action, who could receive all of these treatments, and not only that, but be able to be seen as better in the public eye just because he's black, or is the white cisgender male more victimized because he's a conservative? Yeah, and I just want you to consider that.
There is a scholarship where if you are a minority, you can get it, but if you're a white person, you cannot get that scholarship. Yeah, that I do consider racist because you're giving money based off of race. And I know there's an argument made that black people and minorities, Hispanics, Asians, are statistically lower income, but it should be based off of income, not what race you are, because there are rich black people out there. There are rich every race in America, and that's the nice thing is about America.
Mostly Asians. Not even white people. Mostly Asians. Is there Asian privilege? I don't hear anybody talking about that. So I think, you know what? I think what this means is that Asians should be kicked out of the country, and we should kick everyone out who's not black, Native American, transgender, gay, or I don't know, Z. I think our entire country should be ran by gender Z, because that just makes the most sense to me. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. See you guys. See you guys next time.